for tuning in to another presentation courtesy of Product Marketing Off-Piste. We hope you've enjoyed the session. The good news, we've even more speakers lined up who will be sharing their product marketing expertise. So brace yourself, it promises to be quite the ride.
60% of your team's time goes to doing things that aren't actually work. Asana gives you that time back. Assign tasks, select due dates, and keep everyone on the same page. You can find the latest and greatest attached to each task. Discuss work details right where work happens. With Asana, your team can view any project in the way they find most useful. They can avoid getting overwhelmed by balancing their workload and removing bottlenecks. With Asana, you can see what everyone is doing and automate processes for the type of work you do most often. And it provides built-in feedback and approvals to keep things moving. Asana is built to scale across your entire company so anyone can see where things are at and how it all maps back to the company goals. So get that time back and get the team organized around the work that matters most. Try Asana today.
Whether you're on the outskirts of product marketing, looking to transition into the industry, or you're a director with years of experience looking to make that leap to VP, our hiring hub has something for everyone. Think of it as your career companion, providing you with everything you could possibly need to forge a successful career in product marketing and climb the elusive ladder. So, let's take a look at what you can expect once you're inside. For each of the core job titles, Associate Product Marketing Manager, Senior PMM, Director of Product Marketing, and VP of Product Marketing, we've got heaps of mock interviews, practice interview tasks, sample interview questions, advice guides, salary stats, example job descriptions, expert videos, and more. Each section has been designed to help you prepare for the next phase of your career and walk into your next interview brimming with confidence, or help you bridge key skills gaps to start planning for the next leap, whether it's next month or next year. As well as all that, we've got tons more sample interview questions broken down by product marketing topic, including metrics, personas, research, positioning, collaboration, and more, to help you plan out your answers to potential questions and answer them in style on interview day. And the interview questions don't stop there. Aspire to work at Uber or Intercom or Amazon? We've gotten behind the scenes with product marketers who work there and get a feel for the kinds of questions their hiring managers ask. On top of that, we've also got hours worth of career-focused presentations on everything from advancing your product marketing career to how to build and structure a product marketing team. And these are delivered by experienced PMMs from organizations like TikTok, Clue, Salesforce, Xero, Typeform, and more. And finally, to help you put all this into practice in a real-life setting, you'll have unlimited access to our live monthly workshops where you'll be given the chance to run mock interviews and get peer feedback, ask questions, learn from others, and network with fellow PMMs. The PMA Hiring Hub really has all the bases covered, and as it was built with support from PMMs at companies like Google, IBM, Intercom, and more, you can rest assured your career's in the safest of hands. Welcome to Product Marketing Off-Piste. We've yet another exciting presentation coming up, but before we get started, we'd like to take a moment to thank every one of our sponsors and partners, because without them, we wouldn't be able to bring this event to you. Don't forget, each speaker is going to be answering your questions, offering tailored support after their presentation. So stick around, leave your question, and get advice from a true expert in the field, tailored to you. It's that simple. Enjoy the presentation.
In some ways, things are kind of the same.
People are dropping off.
In other ways,
The screen's too slow.
well,
Fluffy, seriously.
We still got a couple things just to polish this up.
the good news is we've learned we can do this.
Any questions?
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, let's run through the sign-up flow. I really like how clean it is. On top of that,
Turns out when we're hitting our goals, nobody cares if we're wearing pants. We just need the right tools. So our team stays a team. So no matter what comes next, we know we can work better, do better. This is going to work.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are so excited to be here this afternoon. Maybe it's evening, maybe it's morning, depending where you are here in the world. We do have a global panel today. And today we're going to talk about storytelling, which, as we know, in the midst of a pandemic, has changed quite a bit. And we've had to adapt as product marketers in using different tactics, in reaching our target personas, in being highly virtual, and even more engaging than ever. When we were chatting here as a panel, before we were recording this session, we talked a lot about empathy. We talked a lot about engagement. So we're going to sort of stay on that theme today. And hopefully you'll walk away from this with some tips and tricks to take back into your own product marketing disciplines and learn a little something about sort of pivoting your storytelling quickly and being agile and empathetic, human, if you will. So everybody, I'm going to let everybody sort of introduce themselves. And they'll talk a little bit about, our panelists will talk a little bit about what they do at their respective companies. So Tim, why don't you start us off? Tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Choi, Vice President of Product Marketing here at Proofpoint. Proofpoint is a global cybersecurity company helping organizations protect their most valuable assets, their people, through our email security, cloud security, compliance, and information protection products. I run the product marketing organization, and I've got a wonderful, amazing team of product marketers that are responsible for go-to-market, launch, messaging, driving revenue for the organization. I'm also responsible for product launches within the organization at Proofpoint. So great to be here today.
Thanks so much, Tim. Sophie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, all. I'm Sophie Asher. I run product marketing at Product Board, which makes software for product managers. And yeah, I've also been really excited to work with an awesome team there and develop the product as we've been working through these last couple of months.
Awesome. Thanks, Sophie. Edith, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Jenny. Hi, everyone. I'm Irit. I'm a product marketing manager at Facebook. And I cover a varied amount of products, but I'm covering specifically the scale business. So this is the small, medium businesses at Facebook. And we do anything from launches to enhancements to product messaging. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thanks, Edith. Elliot, certainly last but not least, Elliot holds the distinction of being our only B2C product marketer on the panel. So please introduce yourself, Elliot.
Yes, Elliot Rayner, head of product marketing at Babbel. Babbel's a language learning app, so leading my team to try and find easier ways to make it to learn a language digitally. So from England, but based in Berlin with Babbel right now.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks for joining us from across the pond. And Edith is also in EMEA as well. So thank you. And my name is Jenny Gomez. I'm a product marketing director at Lucidworks. We do enterprise search amongst many other things, a lot of ML and personalization involved there. So quick intro on my side, but we'll jump right in and start talking about the juicy bits. Edith, I'll start with you. It looks like at Facebook, a lot of your main responsibilities revolve around training, events, webinars, things we're all very used to here as product marketers. Obviously, all those things have changed dramatically in this current climate. Talk a little bit about how you've been able to pivot successfully, how your sales team has responded, and why do they need more support than ever these days? What are some tips and tricks that you've been sort of jumping into?
Yeah. So as you said, empathy is quite a big area of focus for me, and I really try to lead with empathy. And this means a lot about understanding how much time people are spending in meetings, how much time they have to process my posts, my messaging, how complicated our varied products are. So I really try to be concise and themed with my messaging. So messaging around specific themes that I want to highlight, or doing it in a fun way that they would be relatable, like videos or short messages. And also a big part of what we do, like webinars and trainings, we did have to convert it to online. So we're also being very aware of how much time people are spending online in webinars and trying to keep that at a minimum and really honing in on what we want to, what message we want to convey and how we do it at best.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Precision is key, keeping the message concise and thinking about people's human lives, taking bio breaks and not just, butting meetings up one against each other. Very important these days. We're having to be extra thoughtful. Thanks so much. Sophie, I imagine with the remote nature of work these days, a collaborative product like Product Board provides even more value to the customer, to product managers specifically. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been able to sort of like maybe use industry metrics or that drive some of those go-to-market stories and make an impact with your customers?
Yeah. So one of the huge things about Product Board that's been really valuable is that it makes it much easier to collaborate cross-functionally. And I think as we all been working remotely, that's become increasingly important. And as we've been figuring out how we want to message this to the product marketing side, we're also learning a lot, honestly, from our customers, since we're all going through this unprecedented time together and we're all figuring out how we adapt and what we do. And I think one of the most powerful things that I've been really excited about has been learning from our customers how they've been adapting and how they've been changing their work practices using our products, and then sharing those stories more widely with our core audience as well as our internal sales team. So I think the power of customer stories and customer examples has been really resonant in this particular time and has really helped drive and inform some of these updates to messaging and updates to what we're focusing on in the industry. And then I think secondly, as we've been sort of getting more of a sense of where the industry is going and what are these core areas or some of the trends that we've seen, we've also commissioned our own research and our own work to think through how can we help contribute to some of these industry metrics and provide some of these best practices, given that we're uniquely situated in this market in a very collaborative space and a collaborative area. So we've also leveraged that as well to sort of contribute to the industry metrics too.
That's great. Thanks, Sophie. I think that it's that thoughtfulness again, where we're listening to our customers and really thinking about what's important to them. I think that's something that we can take away after the pandemic is like how to sort of keep that thoughtfulness and that openness to thinking about really putting ourselves in our customers' shoes. I love that. Thanks, Sophie. Elliot, like I mentioned, you hold our B2C product marketer distinction. And in a space, I imagine an app like Babbel is probably seeing explosive growth as people are looking for new hobbies. I'm sure learning languages is one of those things. You also recently made a pivot from the sports world to Babbel. Talk a little bit about how you've changed your storytelling approach with this new audience segment and in the midst of all this craziness.
Yeah, as you mentioned, so I spent some time at Adidas and then ASICS, so working for big sports brands, and storytelling is kind of cheating in those brands because it's such exciting things, such exciting products, things that people want to buy anyway. So you're just kind of putting the foot down on the accelerator. But also at the same time, what happens is all of the brands start to sound the same. If you were to take a major Nike advert and switch the logos to be Adidas or ASICS, you might be able to trick the consumer to realizing, all of these brands sound the same. And I think that's something we saw specifically at the beginning of lockdown as well, as a lot of brands with the same message and it all kind of getting clouded out. And I think as people were all better than ever at being a bit cynical and knowing when people are lying to us, being able to know when a message is unauthentic. And I think that's one of the nicest things of coming to Babbel. It's a purpose-driven company. We're trying to make people learn languages. and being able to speak a message which connects to our business purpose. And I think whenever a brand does that, the storytelling seems to be a lot more effective.
Yeah, that's great. Authenticity these days, I feel like it's been a buzzword while we've been on lockdown. It's like we're so focused on our screens. If we're not really connecting and being authentic and truthful with our message, we just lose our customer. Thanks so much, Elliot. That's great. Tim, so let's talk security. Might not sound like the sexiest topic, but certainly becoming increasingly important as we're all in our personal little clouds, and how, you know, so many businesses are moving to the cloud. Data centers are all over the place. It's a wildly hot button topic. How do you navigate the world of security and compliance and tell compelling stories that create that trust and relief for your customers? I'd be curious to hear what challenges you're facing in particular.
Actually, before I answer that question, I do want to give a shout out to Babbel. Great app. Being locked down from home, learning new languages. It's a wonderful interface, I must say. That the interactivity, the process, the steps. So, you know, big shout out to the app that you guys built.
What language are you learning?
But to come back to your question about then, no, it is a hot button topic for enterprises today. You know, what we see in terms of trends, attackers leveraging the fact that everyone's working from home. We saw, especially in the outset of, in the early beginnings of pandemic, attackers leveraging COVID-themed lures, like click here to see who's infected, click here to see, where your invoice for your masks are coming from, things like that, to really trick people. And it's very unfortunate. But, you know, so it is, security is very much top of mind for enterprise organizations all the way up to the board level. What is interesting over the last couple of months, we have seen with sort of many organizations and many of our buyers being very much zoomed out with Zoom meetings over and over and over again. And as we all, everyone's transition over to digital, is that sort of the desire for community has become so much more critical for them. They want to hear from their peers. They want to hear from each other. They want to be able to hear how their peers are solving, you know, equivalent painful problems that they need. So what we've really shifted over is, you know, in addition to, you know, product marketers telling stories, equally if not more important, and if I may point out, that's what I just did with the Babbel app, is for someone else to tell the story, right? To someone else that is actually in the midst of that, to lend their credibility and to tell that story on your behalf. Right? Because that desire for community to hear from a peer, as we're all locked into our own homes, we're not able to network, we're not able to go out to conferences, we're not able to, you know, have like beer time and talk about what's going on. That desire to hear from others, interact with others is so much more important. So that's why, for me, what we found quite effective is that story time, where it's not us telling the story, it's in fact customers telling the story. So we just wrapped up our annual conference for our Proofpoint Protect event. And what we intentionally did was, for the majority of all the breakout sessions, all the main stage sessions, we had one customer in there telling their story in there. Right? So it was really a conference for customers, by customers, to be able to make it that much more interactive.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm definitely seeing a through line here. Listening to our customers, being authentic, being empathetic, being thoughtful, major ways that we're just having to inject a lot more humanity into what we do in the day-to-day. Speaking of sort of, I think it's great that we are all sort of in tune to the industry and in tune with each other. I loved the shout out, product marketers helping product marketers. What are some really really amazing, engaging campaign examples, whether it was sort of your own campaigns that you're really, really proud of, or something sort of you've just seen out in the wild that you really think sort of hit the nail on the head with this new way that we should be storytelling, while we're all locked down? Feel free to jump in. We can interrupt each other, so don't worry about it.
I think one of the things that I've seen a couple of campaigns that we've run, and I've also just seen in general, I think, has been how campaigns have used humor I think initially there was this kind of first wave, like I think Elliot was saying, around all these kind of, same messaging. Everyone was saying, we're here for you, we support you, which I think was great and was very genuine, but did definitely start to blur together. And after a while, I'm sure you did too, as a consumer, you're like, all right, enough. I've heard about all of these before. And I think it's been really interesting as time has gone on to see brands lean into more of their personality and to be a little bit weirder and quirkier. I think there was, remember, it was like a Hotel Tonight advertisement they were talking about, which is tough, right? Travel. And it was like little things of like, remember when you could travel, or like, I'll think about all of it. And it was like very tongue in cheek because everyone was like, I imagine was like, oh yeah, right, we can't travel. And that's been tough. But it was memorable because I was like, oh, that's nice. Like they're addressing where we're at, but also they're kind of really bringing their brand and their personality to their advertising. And I imagine that must have resonated really well. And then similarly, we've been also experimenting more, probably being a little bit more creative or a little bit kind of trying different things, then we, take a few more risks than we might have otherwise, because we sort of have that opportunity. And we've seen some really interesting success using, we have this big campaign around the animals of product management and sort of these stereotypes of ways that decisions get made. Like the hippo is someone like the highest paid person in the room, their opinion would be maybe driving the strategy, versus there's like a wolf who's always running from fire to fire. So like really addressing key pain points, but in a very unique way, and in a way that's a little more humorous and engaging. And so I think that's one of the ways I think I've seen been successful as companies sort of lean into some of the weirdness and take a little bit more unusual approach, even in the B2B space as well.
Yeah, we were fortunate earlier this year to have some great minds at Babbel put out a Save Our Students campaign. So realizing over 3 million students in Europe weren't able to go to school anymore, and to release vouchers to allow people to study for free. And as you said, who would have thought, it could have quite easily, people have negative things during lockdown. There's no reason to think that they would want to learn German or Japanese. They could have just wanted to get a big bottle of wine and watch Netflix. But one of the things we learned is that how many people use this as a chance to embrace.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to add on the idea of trends. We've seen different behaviors emerge from this whole crisis. So people care more about safety and cleanliness for when they shop, things that were not there before. So I've seen a few examples where they are targeting like this very initial emotion of needing something. So I've seen a campaign by Hilton that they're really targeting on the cleanliness, but in a funny way, how they keep their rooms clean and how it's clean quite often. So all these things that are brought into the spotlight that you wouldn't think about it before. And another example from a smaller business is something that I saw from Mixtiles. I don't know if you know it. It's just it allows you to print photos and stick it on your wall. But instead of just showing the product itself, their ad actually showed people receiving their Mixtiles. So people that haven't been together in a while, just receiving those photos and just targeting that emotion is really strong for me. And I think this is what makes good stories stick. It's that emotional aspect.
On the theme of empathy, recall when everything went into shutdown and lockdown, there was tremendous chaos within many industries and organizations, and with shutdown, the revenue impact to many organizations across the world, and budgets frozen. I can't spend. I need to solve certain problems. So there was a very interesting sort of situation where we as product marketers need to drive revenue for our organization in a time when our customers were struggling with the issue of spend. So this whole thing, the fine line of empathy of how do I message to someone where you're not ready to buy right now, but I'm going to tell you how I can help you as much as possible. So what we put in place was, we're here to help. We'll put together offers for you and message to you in this period where we'll give you X amount of time of software so that you can directly address certain types of pain points and problems, because customers needed help. And there's that if you're proactively reaching out to help them and give them something to offer, to assist in their problems and message in an empathetic way, that loyalty builds up tremendously. Right? There is a classic story of a particular hotel chain that had gone into financial stress and strain and had asked for financial support, assistance from many of their vendors. And one particular vendor, I will not name names, declined to support them through this phase. And as a result, now obviously this particular hotel chain recovered and it's flourished, and it's flourished since then. That hotel chain only offers that competitor's products, right? So in this moment of crisis, of extreme sort of financial strain on organizations, how do we as product marketers message to them, obviously with a desire to like, hey, look, I want you to spend money with me, but then figure out financially how, and messaging to them how I can help you address your concerns from financial strain, but build customer loyalty so that we can come back and develop a strong, tight relationship into the future. I think that's extremely, extremely important as product marketers, sort of messaging in crisis for our buyers.
Yeah, and I think something you also mentioned on there too is not only the messaging in crisis, but is really the importance of really building that relationship with customers and not as just a purely transactional relationship, but really thinking about it in terms of the long term of building and developing that relationship over time. And I think that's also been interesting as we've seen companies adapt. I know we've been thinking about that too, around how are we talking or introducing people to our product and sort of building that relationship with the expectation it's going to be a focus on the long term and helping them kind of grow and explore our product over time with the expectation that their business will grow and change over time and really be thought of as more of a partner for them rather than just something they think of in, in a short-term kind of way. So
exactly.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's a great point. That like being sort of like, to bring in all of our collective buzzwords, being sort of like authentically empathetic and actually supporting our customers is going to build that loyalty over time so that when things are maybe out of crisis mode, we're going to have customers that are going to stick with us in the long term. So the long-term vision, there is actually a sort of transactional nature to being empathetic. That's not why we want to do it, obviously, but there's benefit there, obviously, in the long term, which is it's definitely something to think about. That's great points all around. Question 2, I think we had a conversation when we were sort of, rehearsing a little bit about budget. You brought that up, Tim, about how people's budgets are changing, their cash flows changing. Even if you're B2C, consumers' cash flow is changing in a very impactful way, and we need to be thinking about that. How has sort of budget realignment changed your target personas? Are you marketing to sort of different customers now? Are you thinking about that like how you're talking to your target personas now because that's shifted? Does anybody have any insights on that? Because obviously target personas are such an important part of what we do.
Yeah, I can jump in to start. With the financial strain that many organizations face, we see a tighter sort of scrutiny over spend. And in fact, in certain organizations, the decision of spend has shifted, sometimes wholesale into the CFO's office. So it wasn't just line of business anymore that's making decisions. It's essentially all the way centralized in the CFO. Because many organizations, let's be honest, facing in specific industries, certain industries, their revenues have been tremendously impacted, and essentially they're in lockdown state to get through this phase, and then cash conservation is critical for them. Right? So what we have found is the necessity to be able to message the economic value of our solution. It becomes much more critical, either directly to the decision maker, right, or to arm your champion to be able to take and then present their business case, right? So spending much more, and as product marketers, we have to do this anyways in terms of like the economic value, like what is the benefit, time savings, risk reduction, consolidation of vendors, et cetera, et cetera. These are all very standard things when you look at from a quantitative perspective. But it's become much more critical now, I feel, like, especially in our world within enterprise software, like, with industries, like I said, certain industries, like I said, having, where they're just literally cash conservation stage and decisions are being made somewhere else.
Yeah, at Babel, we had the opportunity, excuse me, as we had this huge influx of new users, it gave us an opportunity to break them down and learn a little bit more about them and basically break it down to why do people learn. And I think when you look at two of the things that were taken away from us, a lot of vacation time none of us got to have, and also career opportunities abroad, you would have thought that the need or the want to learn a language would go down. And it didn't, it went up, and it gave us in a moment to kind of readdress why that is. And something that we had thought for a long time is that actually people don't learn a language for a transactional reason. It's much more an inspirational, a transformational reason of a personal growth. And so I think we were able to learn from that, and it was confirmation that, it gave us a new understanding of our learner, and we could kind of lean into that and build our campaigns based on that belief.
Yeah, I think it also shifts not just the personas per se, but I think it's sort of how you talk to them and how to help them, or how kind of the way I think that we positioned a lot of the value of our product. I think that was also that shift from more of like, we're solving a very discrete problem to we are adding value to your business, or we're going to help you be that champion and help drive business and ideally drive revenue for your company. And I think sort of helping that pivot has helped us shift and have a more strategic conversation with a lot of our customers and be able to position in that way, because we're framing it to them as, this is a way that we can help you help your business. And we know things are tough right now, but this is going to add a lot more additional value and really make sure that you guys are able to weather the storm as best as possible. So I think it's not only for us, has not necessarily been changes in personas, but in the way that we've messaged and the type of messages we've been delivering to them.
Yeah, and I'll add to that the idea of this whole shift to online and it's about taking businesses with you and encouraging them to learn how to succeed online. And that's a lot of what we do at Facebook is help them just digitize and help them move their businesses online, because we know that with this, especially with the holiday season coming up, there won't be people shopping on the street. There won't be people in stores. So how do we make sure that they can still maximize what they can learn online, how they can bring these things online and help them with the right tools, but also with the right messaging. With some businesses are totally new to this world. So being, again, empathetic about this.
Yeah, absolutely. All great insights. And I want to be conscious of time here, obviously, and something you brought up, Edith. We don't want to, force people to be in front of their screens for too long, but I want to definitely end it on a little bit of a fun note. I think we can learn as much from great campaigns as we can from terrible campaigns. So does anybody have any fun examples of campaigns that, and Elliot, you brought it up, like it is a time of experimentation, and I don't think we want to blame a bunch of brands and companies for trying something and maybe missing the mark. But has there been some bad campaigns that you've learned from in the midst of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think we discussed it before. I actually think the ones that have experimented, I haven't seen that too bad. It's the ones that haven't experimented, the one that looked at the situation and thought, people want to hear that I care for them. Don't worry, we'll get through this. We're in this together. These kind of cliche messages that are basically copy paste. And what we saw was 100 different major brands with the same message. And of course, they got lost in the noise. So I don't have an example of experimenting that's gone wrong. And that's why I always think it's better to take a risk and be yourself and stick to your purpose and do something truly unique. So even if it isn't great, it's you, and you can build from that, and you have a unique voice rather than just, as I say, being lost in the noise with the other brands.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's really a great chance to help your brand personality shine through. I think we're talking about this, Elliot, but there was that kind of compilation, like kind of mock video of like, this is your COVID ad or your company's ad during this time. And it was like the same music and the same announcer voice and like the same set of graphics. And, like, you don't want to be that, like that kind of caught in that broad umbrella. And I think it is, it is a time, not every idea we come up with, we love to say is brilliant, but they're not all winners. But I think the extent possible that you can really lean into sort of what makes your company unique and personable, I think also helps build that authentic connection. Every company is different. Every company has different values that they stand for. And I think the way that we can kind of build that out or lean into that more and sort of make a different angle or different lens on the work and the messaging that we're doing, I think will hopefully really resonate with consumers or with our users, or at the very least sort of help establish us and help really solidify the brand and what we stand for.
That's great. Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, I think we've had some great insights. I think the major through lines have been, we have to listen to our customers. Let's never forget to listen to our customers. We have to pivot the message based on what those customers are telling us and just be human. I think it's very easy to lose sight of our humanity when we're just in front of a bunch of screens, but we have to be thinking about it, that we're all in this together and we all have to support one another. And I think that comes through in all of our product messaging, whether it's B2B, B2C, security, online learning, Facebook, collaborative B2B products. Thanks so much, guys, for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure that the Product Marketing Alliance audience is going to learn a lot from you guys. So appreciate your thought leadership. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're back for more specialist insights, welcome to Product Marketing Off-Piste. Before we begin, we want to say a thank you to our sponsors and partners for helping us bring this awesome event to life. We're sure you'll enjoy it. And if you're on the lookout for more resources, our Slack community is home to a bunch of contributions from thousands and thousands of fellow product marketers. So if you're not already a member, join the debate, but for now, enjoy the presentation.
Every year, 60% of your team's time goes to doing things that aren't actually work. That's enough time to get from LA to New York. Walking. With Asana, your team gets that time back. Asana makes it easier for teams to get work done. Assign tasks, select due dates, and keep everyone on the same page. You can find the latest and greatest attached to each task. Discuss work details right where work happens. With Asana, your team can view any project in the way they find most useful. They can avoid getting overwhelmed by balancing their workload and removing bottlenecks. With Asana, you can see what everyone is doing and automate processes for the type of work you do most often. And it provides built-in feedback and approvals to keep things moving. Asana is built to scale across your entire company so anyone can see where things are at and how it all maps back to the company goals. So get that time back and get the team organized around the work that matters most. Try Asana today.
Welcome to the top 1%. Do what 99% of product marketers are missing. How to make your product irresistible with lessons from behavioral economics. Let's start with something easy. We are rational, right? We spend a lot of time on big decisions like what's the best school for our kids? What's going to set them up for a great future? In a time when we were commuting more often, we would think about what's the best way to get to work. Well, what's the weather like today? Is the subway or driving going to be better? What does pricing look like? We think about this really rationally. And something I would know a lot about, I used to work at Lyft. Which rideshare app should I use right now? People really like to think about balancing the amount of money it costs and the time it will take to get somewhere. Super rational. All right, let's start with a quick exercise. Who would agree that they are pretty rational? Take a moment to reflect on that. Now, I want you to imagine that it's date night. You live in New York City on the Upper West Side, and you decide with your partner that you're really in the mood for a great burger. You're walking around and you've got this great idea. Let's go to Shake Shack. Shake Shack is so good. You walk up and you see, whoa, that's quite a line. It looks pretty long. You ask the staff and they tell you the wait time is about 1 to 2 hours. I don't really want to stand in line for 1 to 2 hours. Well, what else could we do? You know, because you're pretty smart and you're pretty rational, like you told me earlier, you might do a quick search for burgers nearby and see that, wow, there are really 20 to 30 other pretty good options that could satisfy that burger craving nearby. All right, with that information, what would you do? Well, I'll tell you, if you live in Queens or Korea or California or Japan or Philly or Austin, you wait in line. These are actual photos of super long lines from Shake Shacks around the world. And no, it's not that Shake Shack is a super special restaurant or super special experience. You can probably think of something in your own neighborhood. In fact, in my neighborhood, Noe Valley in San Francisco, there's a sushi place called Saru Sushi. It's rated 4.7 stars on Google, and it usually has a 2-hour wait on the weekends in pre-COVID times. Now, you look down the street and there's a restaurant that also sells great sushi, rated kind of similarly, and there's rarely a long wait. What's going on here? Well, you think about that, you also think about finances. 71% of Americans are not saving enough money for retirement. We know we should, but we're not saving enough on average. 46% have less savings than they expected they would 5 years ago. And we also see it in things as mundane as airline purchases. I'm sure we've all stared at a screen just like this from a site like Expedia. You look at that top flight and you see, okay, it's leaving at 5 p.m. All right, it's $404. All right, makes sense. That bottom one is leaving at a similar time. Oh my gosh, it's almost gone. There are only 3 left. It must be so valuable. What am I missing that other people are noticing? And it turns out it's not just something in our brain that's questioning us. It's not just us. It turns out it bears out in studies. This study said we find that scarcity messages are valuable. The average Expedia message increased the expected utility of an unsophisticated traveler about 4%. These things have a real world impact. So it raises the question, are we that rational? No, we are not, and that's totally okay. That's totally normal. This is how we're programmed, and this is how we behave. But here's the good news. We can use this to shape behavior for better marketing campaigns and better products. A little bit about me. I'm so passionate about this because I studied marketing undergrad at Wharton, where I was teased for taking 2 times the amount of marketing courses that I had to. And that led me to take a course called Contagious with Professor Jonah Berger, who wrote a book at the time. And actually, he ended up becoming my thesis advisor. I wrote about what goes viral in revolutionary Cuba. And I took all these consumer psych lessons and I started applying them in my first job out of school at American Express, where I used a lot of these lessons on loyalty products. I took that same knowledge and did it for transportation at Lyft. And now I'm thinking about how do we shape customer behavior all the time at telehealth company Hims and Hers. Here's what we're going to go through today. First, I'm going to walk you through the problem that I see in the way that product marketers do their work. And all of us fall prey to this all the time. Next, I'm going to walk you through the 3 steps to supercharge your product growth with psychology. I use these all the time, and I'm going to share them with you today. I'm going to share a few case studies with you to prove that you can actually put this in practice yourself. And then we're going to talk about a framework so you can apply it on your next project. Let's start with the problem. 95% of new products fail, and it is not for lack of trying. Really smart people and really smart teams use great tools like market research, UX research, and competitive analysis to try to set their products up for success. But here's the thing, people tend to forget to start with people. There's a whole world of human insight that you should be applying to your work. I want you to imagine a world where your growth tactics were more effective, you didn't need incremental budget to scale, and you didn't always have to dilute your brand with discounts that cheapened what people were willing to pay for it. We're going to do that exactly today. It's going to become a reality, not just an imagined world, with the 3 steps to supercharge with psychology. Step number 1, you're going to nudge them. That is designing the behavioral environment really deliberately. We're going to get into what that means. 2, you're going to persuade them, increase the chance that your audience will get to yes. 3, you're going to get them talking. That's how you get people to authentically advertise for you, and they're spreading your message on their behalf. Step number 1, nudging them. I want you to imagine that a cafeteria is trying to get students to eat more healthy foods. Now, there are a lot of temptations, like those cookies we can see right there, maybe some soda. Well, what could this cafeteria do? The conventional things that companies, governments, all sorts of entities use are restrictions, that is removing products, putting a ban on them, maybe regulating them. Another thing is changing money, that is adding a discount to do a certain thing, or a tax to another thing so you don't do it. And then third, information, that is advertising, PSAs, and disclosures. So what might this look like for the cafeteria? Well, restrictions might look like taking all the junk food out of the cafeteria. Money might look like, well, let's give a healthy food discount or a junk food tax. And information might be putting up posters in the cafeteria explaining the benefits of eating healthy. Here's the thing though, these typical tactics tend to backfire in the real world. Restrictions, taking things away, often leads to people being angry that they were taken away. Money changes might lead to people getting upset over higher prices, and information is often missed and ignored. So here's what you could do. You could nudge them in the right direction instead. What could a nudge look like? Well, a nudge would mean we could take that unhealthy food and we could make it harder to get. Let's put it on higher shelves or maybe behind the counter at the cash register. And we could take the healthy food, we could put it right next to the cash register so it's easy to grab. All right, let's do another quick reflection. How much do you think that this could increase the healthy items that are sold? Maybe 1 to 5%? Do you think maybe 5 to 10%? Maybe you're thinking more like over 10%, up to 20 and beyond. Well, here's the answer. It's 78%. 78% more healthy items were sold in a similar experiment at a train station when healthy food was put right next to the cash register. This is called choice architecture. You can shape behavior by considering what the default behavior of your audience is. Now, I want you to imagine that you're shopping on 2 electronic sites for headphones. You come across these headphones, they look so great, the noise canceling feature is going to make your life so wonderful, and you see on the product page, it's $150. Now, you're perusing another site and you see it's $145 on the product page, but $5 at checkout is added for shipping. Well, hold on, what's going on here? They're exactly the same when you add it all up. And if we were purely rational, we wouldn't care. But we've all faced that second scenario in the real world, and it annoys us. Why does it annoy us? Well, this is prospect theory at work. Here's what you should know about prospect theory. It says that there is an S-curve of psychological value that we feel related to losses and gains, taking things away and getting them. Losses are felt more than gains, it's more pronounced. And 2, the other thing you should know is there's a diminishing effect. Well, why does that diminishing effect matter? If you were to plot that cost of the headphones on this chart, you would see that this is where the $150 charge lands. But the thing is, because of that curve, the $140 gets added to that -5 there, so you end up feeling a more pronounced negative when you separate the costs. It doesn't just happen on the negatives, it happens on the positives too. Imagine you're walking down the street and you stumble upon a $10 bill. Oh my gosh, it's my lucky day. I should buy a lottery ticket perhaps. Well, this is how much psychological value you'd feel from that game. But imagine that one week you come across a $5 bill and the next day you come across another $5 bill, you would feel like the luckiest person on the planet because those values stack. Prospect theory says you should make sure to group pains but separate gains for your audience. Now, imagine a different study. Imagine there are 2 groups. One half of the group is given mugs. Nothing fancy about this mug. It's a plain white ceramic mug. The other group isn't given anything. They're given nothing. This group, they get to chatting for a little bit. And then at one point, the group is asked, okay, mug holders, how much would you have to be paid to part with that nice white ceramic mug? You know what they say? Oh, I just couldn't bear to part with it without about $7.12. Okay, great. Sellers, how much would you be willing to pay for those nice white ceramic mugs? $2.87. What's going on here? No, it is not a negotiation. They are not haggling. This is the endowment effect in action. Turns out people value what they already own. Dan Ariely has a great example of this. He calls the IKEA effect. He looked at people that put together their own furniture versus folks that had other people put it together, maybe a TaskRabbit or a friend or family member. And the people that put that IKEA furniture together themselves valued it far more. This is the endowment effect. Let's build on that a little bit. I want you to imagine a car wash. This car wash has a rewards program. How exciting, you're going to work your way toward a free car wash. In one variant, there's an 8-punch punch card. You get it blank. They just hand it to you when you get your car wash, and you have to get 8 more purchases to get that 9th car wash free. In the other group, it is a 10-punch punch card, but there are 2 punches already filled out. Now, let's think about this. What do we think is the percentage increase in punch card completion when there are 2 free stamps? Remember, both cards require 8 more car washes to get that 9th car wash free. It just so happens that that second one had 2 free stamps. 79% more people completed the card when there was already some free progress. What is this idea? Well, it is endowed progress. Not only do we value things that we already have, we value free progress. You can use free progress in your next campaign or on your next feature to motivate people to do more. Different scenario. I want you to imagine a cafe that sells 3 sizes of coffee. Let's say they sell an 8-ounce, a 12-ounce, a 16-ounce, a small, medium, large. And you know, what do you think the best seller is? Well, it turns out the medium one is the best seller. Now, let's say they run out of the 8-ounce cups one day and they decide, why don't we just upgrade? Let's get rid of that 8-ounce and let's add a new large, the 20 ounces. What do you think happens? Well, that 12 ounces doesn't stay the best seller. The 16-ounce cup becomes the next best seller. What's going on here? Well, it's not that people wanted exactly 12 ounces of wonderful hot liquid. It's that the middle choice is the easiest to make when we have limited information. This is called the compromise effect. With limited info, people pick the middle option. You've probably felt this at movie theaters, at restaurants, at convenience stores. Whenever there are 3 things, people tend to gravitate toward that middle option. All right, we walked through a few key behavioral phenomena under Nudge Them. You learned about choice architecture and designing the behavioral environment. So the default is what you want to happen. Prospect theory, where you feel losses and gains in a diminishing way, and you should really separate those gains to feel more positive and group losses so that you feel less negative. We learned about the endowment effect. We value things we have. Endowed progress. We also do more when we have free progress. The compromise effect, picking the middle option. And anchoring. What's anchoring? That's what I did to you on that first question when I asked you, how much more do you think that change in the cafeteria would change sales of healthy food? We said 1 to 5%. Maybe you thought of a lower number. When I've done this in big groups, people think of lower numbers more in the 1 to 10 range because I started at 1, even though that answer was 78%. All right, step 2 in the Supercharge Your Growth framework. This is persuade them. How do you get them to yes? I love Cialdini. He's got this wonderful book, Influence, that I highly recommend to any product marketer. And there are a few principles that he teaches. 1 is reciprocity. 2, commitment and consistency. 3, social proof. 4, liking. 5, authority. And 6, scarcity. We're going to go through a few of them right now. All right, you've probably seen these shoes out and about before. For years, J.Crew exclusively sold the Nike Killshot 2 only in super limited batches and only through J.Crew stores. Now, this is what it looks like. It's a nice looking shoe, but it's not particularly fancy. This is not some celebrity shoe like a Kanye West Yeezy. It is just a nice looking classic shoe for $90. Now let's look at the aftermarket. They go on eBay for up to twice that cost. Well, J.Crew could clearly sell these for more money. Why aren't they selling them for more money and in indefinite quantities, as much as they can make? It's the same thing as what was happening with that airline example. It is scarcity in action. When there's a limited supply, it makes us want to buy. And we see this in this quote here, that Killshot 2 is white hot since early 2016. It's sold out every time it's hit jcrew.com. And this article thinks the reason they use this as a, let's call it a scarcity loss leader. They know that they could sell more, but what's way more valuable is the eyeballs that come to jcrew.com and into J.Crew stores to buy chinos and button-down shirts while they have their attention. This is scarcity. Limited supply makes us want to buy. Now I want you to imagine that example we talked about earlier, that long line at Shake Shack. Well, what is this principle? This is social proof. We tend to get in line places. You may have even seen parodies of people getting in line in big cities like New York or San Francisco without quite knowing what they're getting in line for. But we use other people's decisions to make our own. I want you to imagine, how would you feel if you saw an empty restaurant? You've probably walked past empty restaurants before and you felt, oh, I'm not so sure if this is a great restaurant. Is anybody eating here? Is the food any good? Is it safe to eat? We use other people's behavior to inform our own. You've probably seen products do this. Airbnb is known for doing this. You see that little example down there. People are eyeing this place. You may have seen this on e-commerce sites where people tell you how many people are looking at a certain shirt or maybe a skincare product at the same time. Newsletters often do this too. We have over this many subscribers. It helps you feel like, oh, other people have done this. It must be good. It must be quality. You've probably also, given that we just had an election, thought recently about those I voted stickers. Those are another great classic example of social proofing. You can see a behavior that somebody did. All right, this is social proof. We look to others' behavior to inform our own. Now, I want you to imagine a situation where you're crossing the street, but it's not your light to cross. The traffic is coming by. It would be unsafe to cross. In one situation, there is a study going on. You don't know that, but there's a study going on, and an accomplice of the study in plain clothes walks out into the street. A few people go after that person and also try to cross the street against the light. Now there's another situation, same variant or a different variant of that same study, where a person's wearing a suit. Now what happens? Well, 3.5 times more people went into that red light road when the accomplice wore a suit. This is authority in action. It's similar to what happens when Trident used to advertise that 4 out of 5 dentists recommend the gum. It's that social proof, but with the credibility of somebody that seems like an authority figure. People are more likely to act when that authority figure adds credibility. Now, I want you to imagine you just finished eating at a wonderful restaurant. It was a lovely meal. It had French onion soup and it tasted delicious. It warmed your soul. At the end of it, the waiter comes, and there are a few situations here, okay? So in the control, you just get the check and that's it. Waiter walks away. In the next variant, you get the check, and with the check is one of those wonderful little mints. Oh, you love those mints. What a palate cleanser. In another variant, there are 2 mints that come with the bill. Wonderful. And in the last variant, waiter comes over, drops the bill on the table. There is a mint with it, and he starts to walk away, and he turns back around and he says, you know what? For you wonderful people, more mints. What do we think happens? Well, in that first variant, just with that addition of a mint, there's a 3% increase in tips for the waiter. In that second one, a 14% increase in tips just for 1 more mint. That last one, where he started to walk away and came back, 23% increase in tips. These tactics are free, but what is happening here? It's reciprocity. You give something to get something. It is similar if you've been to a mall. You might remember oftentimes fast food places giving out samples to encourage you to eat there. It's the little act of reciprocity. They're giving you something to get something in return. So we talked about a few of these principles. Reciprocity, commitment, and consistency is effectively people like to keep doing something that they said that they would do earlier or are known for doing. Generally speaking, they like to be consistent. Social proof we talked about. We use other people's decisions to inform our own. Liking, this is something I think a lot about as a product marketer when it comes to names. Ever pitch a name in a meeting and everybody hates it at first, but the 20th time they hear it, they start to like it? Nike. Nobody liked the name Nike to start, and now it's one of the most famous and beloved names in the world. Familiarity breeds liking. The more we like something, the more we are going to behave in that manner. Fifth, authority. We talked about how authority and credibility makes us more likely to do something, and scarcity, limited supply, makes us want to buy. All right, step 3, the last step of the framework. You're going to get them talking, and we're going to use a bunch of those tips from Professor Berger, who I talked about earlier, who was my thesis advisor. 6 principles for word of mouth that he has in his STEPPS, steps framework. Number 1 is social currency. 2, triggers, emotion, public, if something's public, practical value, and stories. We're going to talk about a few of them today. All right, I want you to think about a volume of Instagram hashtags. Things like fashion, 744 million posts about a year ago. Travel, over 450 million posts. Workout, 149 million posts. Foodie, 137 million posts. Okay, now let's look at a different kind of hashtag. Lazy, 11 million posts. Late, 6.2 million. Errands, under a million. Binging, 62,000. Now, this is strange because I know all of you aren't high fashion, traveling all the time, working out all the time, and eating wonderful food. In fact, I know we do idiosyncratic things like watch 8+ hours of Netflix on average. This was pre-COVID. I bet it's increased even more now. But binging of this list is the least popular hashtag. Well, what's happening? It's social currency at work. People talk about things that make them look good. You don't like to talk about things that don't make you look good. Switching gears, when I say peanut butter, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Well, for most people, it would be jelly. Peanut butter and jelly. This is what's called a cue or a trigger. And you can use this to your advantage in campaigns to increase product usage. A classic example is Kit Kat. Kit Kat ran a marketing campaign where they encouraged workers in offices to pair it with coffee. So every time these folks had a coffee break, they'd think to walk over to the vending machine and get a Kit Kat, a sweet treat to go with it. And it turned out this worked, creating this trigger in people's minds of coffee and Kit Kat, coffee and Kit Kat. After a year, the campaign caused sales to increase over 30%, bringing sales from 300 million annually to 500 million just by creating this cue in people's minds. Michelob, the beer company, did something similar. They had a campaign where they used to position their product for holidays. They said holidays were made for Michelob. Then one day a bunch of execs said, you know what, it would really be lovely if we sold more beer. Let's change a little bit. They kept the exact same art direction. The only thing they changed, the cue. Weekends. It used to be holidays were made for Michelob. Now it's weekends were made for Michelob. You know what happens? Sales increased when they changed the cue. Change the cue, sell more beer. This is something that you can do too. Another example here. What do you think this is a chart of? Those little spikes that we see happen consistently. Well, it turns out it is Friday. Those spikes are Friday, the day of the week. And you know what they were searches for in that chart? For the song Friday by Rebecca Black. Yep, that's right. The song title itself was a cue in people's minds when it lined up with the day of the week, Friday. People thought about that song more often on that day of the week. So these are triggers. People talk about what is top of mind. Another example here, this time in the emotion category. Emotions really inspire people to talk about things. But because humans are complex beings, there are a range of emotions that we experience. Some of them are super positive emotions, others are negative. And there's also another category, the columns here, high arousal, high impact versus lower arousal. So one example of a positive high arousal might be excitement. I want you to think amusement park, going on a roller coaster. Low arousal, but positive might be content. You're happy, lovely Sunday afternoon, you're just content. Well, these emotions don't all make people share and talk in the same way. It turns out it's that the high arousal emotions make people talk. I want you to think about something that really excited you. Maybe it was bungee jumping or skydiving on a vacation. You probably told people about that for ages or know somebody that did. But it also works the other way. Negative high arousal emotions also inspire people to talk. I want you to think about maybe political rants that you've encountered on social media. People get really, really fired up. When they're fired up, people are more likely to share and more likely to talk. That's how you can use emotion to your advantage in campaigns and product development. So we talked about social currency. People share what makes them look good, triggers those cues in our minds, emotion, high arousal, both positive and negative. Public, this is when you can see something. I want you to think of how much people talked about iPods when they could see others wearing the white headphones in the early days. Practical value, when it has useful information. I want you to think of a lot of those tips and tricks and life hacks articles that are tended to be shared. And stories, people tend to remember stories better than just lists of facts and features. All right, let's look at a few real world examples. It's not just conceptual. I've been able to use this in my own work, and you can too. So here's one example. When I was at Lyft, we took people that were riding on shared rides. This is a ride where you share the car with people going a similar direction to save money. And what we did is we said, okay, you took this ride, this shared ride last month. Looks like you're saving money. Great for you. You're saving for something. What are you saving for? And what we did here is we put them into an email campaign with a progress bar, a little bit filled up. They were already on their way from last month. That's that endowed progress that we were talking about. And we asked them, I want you to pick a goal. Tell me what you're saving for. Maybe it was a nice meal. Maybe it was a little weekend getaway. This is another tactic called active choice. I want you to make a decision, user. And then we would send them updates along the way. There were several touch points throughout the course of the next month that showed that progress bar filling up as they took more shared rides and saved more money. Now, everyone got a dynamic goal based on their past behavior, and we increased it a little bit so that it was a bit of a stretch goal. And we got to take advantage of something called goal gradient theory. This behavioral phenomena says that people do more of something when they get closer to completing a goal. So that's how we were using that to inspire people to save more and ride more. And then at the end, they got a recap email. We told them how much more money they saved. Now, how did this do? Sure, it's a wonderful engagement campaign, but it drove business results too. Shared rides increased stat sig, that product usage that we were really going for, and monthly active riders also increased stat sig. The insight here, you can use psychology to change behavior for free without spending a dime. Another example, we used to sell at Lyft ride passes. These were things that lasted about a month long. You could buy them, pay up front to lock in a discount for the rest of the month. That has since become Lyft's subscription and membership program, Lyft Pink. But what we did at the time was we used the lessons of scarcity to sell more and drive product adoption. You can see in the subject line here, 93% of passes sold. It's your last chance, final hours. One of the most powerful things of driving click-through was that little progress bar you can see underneath the CTA button that filled up. It said 93% of passes sold. This was really effective. Short supply makes people want to buy. Remember that. You can use this in your campaigns too. Since I've been at HIMSS, there are a number of examples. Two I'll share with you from HIMSS and Hers. One is our cologne. We had produced a limited run of cologne, and sure, we could have just explained what it smelled like, that it was a wonderful experience to wear it, and left it at that. But because I knew that that short supply makes people want to buy, we leaned into the scarcity and actually used it to brand it in the product name. Small batch scent, you can see in the screen there. We used that to stand out versus other colognes that we were competing with in the market. And then one more example, we talked about how authority and credibility makes people more likely to do something. A great example is we updated our hair loss page where we sell both prescription and non-prescription products to help with getting thicker, fuller hair and regrowing it. And it used to be that we just focused on it's better to take action. Here are hair loss products. We have since updated the page, and you can see in that headline there, doctor trusted hair loss treatments. And you can see that first benefit, FDA approved treatment options. We're using authority there to convey our expertise and inspire people to shop. And it's working. When we ran this as an experiment, as that sig increased number of people started their medical visit versus the control. All right, now how can you use this yourself? I'm going to leave you today with a framework that I have used in my own work. I call it the Supercharge with Psychology Scorecard. What I want you to do is think about all of those things that we learned in that 3-step process of nudging, persuading, and getting them talking, and evaluating each of those concepts in each of these cells. Now, imagine that each of these cells is worth about half a point, and you're going to go through first and you're going to think about, for your campaign or your product, how can I nudge my audience? I'm going to evaluate how I might use choice architecture. I'm going to evaluate how I might use prospect theory. Now, it's not that you must find a way to use it. It's that I want you to think through each of these things deliberately. You'll do the same thing for persuade them. How can I think about reciprocation, social proof, authority? And the same thing for getting them talking. Think about social currency and triggers and emotion. Each of those 6, they add up to 3 points total. So give yourself half a point if you think through how you might use it for your project. One more half point for completion. Have you evaluated each cell in the 3 rows above? And one more for execution. Have you identified one tactic per row that you can implement? Now, in total, these would all add up to 10 points. I don't get 10 points every time. You won't get 10 points every time. But what is important is thoroughness. You want to think through each of these cells and try to find a way to use them. It's not that you need to maximize all these cells. Pulling more levers won't necessarily yield better results, but being thoughtful, thinking about human behavior will. So add up those scores, see how you do. Use this as a handy tool every time you do go to market to think about how you can set your product up for more adoption. All right, so last reflection here. Did you learn something that you can use on a current or future project today? Think about that. Now you have the tools to make your growth tactics more effective, grow without always needing more budget, and grow while protecting your brand and your product from discounting and diluting perceived value and willingness to pay. The next time you see a long line outside a restaurant, or a wonderful travel Instagram, or maybe even those Nike kill shot shoes on the street, you'll know exactly why. Thank you so much for your attention today. If you enjoyed this, I would so appreciate if you followed me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to double the number of followers I have, and every week I share snackable insights on product marketing and consumer psychology. I would so love if you went over to my LinkedIn profile and hit that follow button. If you only remember one thing today, I want you to remember all the way back to the beginning. Yes, there's market research. Yes, there's UX research. Yes, there's consumer insights and competitive analysis, but don't forget to start with people. When you start with the mind, growth won't be far behind. Thank you very much.